All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Blaine Jones, the Director of Admissions. You've probably seen a lot of emails coming from me. Um, Welcome to the Financial Aid and Student Services, our info session. And so I would like to introduce two of our, oh, it says my audio is fading in and out. I apologize for that. I'll get a little closer to the computer. So again, welcome to the info session for today. Our two presenters are going to be Dr. Tracy Pesqua-Dia, and as well as who is our Senior Director of Student Services. And then we have Michelle Kerr, who is our Graduate Student Services Advisor, Student Affairs Officer. And yeah, they'll be here to, we'll kind of be in the background answering questions. You can pop your questions into the chat. You either can do it now, but there will definitely be a time at the end of the presentation designated to answer your burning questions. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna pass on the mic to you, Tracy, and you, Michelle.
Great. Hi, everyone. As Blaine mentioned, I'm Tracy, and you probably have been seeing messages from me as well. Blaine started here, in mid-February? So between December and mid-February, I was kind of the admissions director, trying to understand that pace before our other person left. And then Michelle, you want to say a quick hello?
Hi, everyone. I've been at the journalism school. I guess I'm the senior person here in terms of time, about 10 or so years. I had another job at journalism before I became an advisor. So it's a great place to be, obviously, because I haven't left.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a quick note. Yeah, so just to Tracy's, just to add more, yes, I did initially just start at the journalism school, so bear with me. But I've been on campus and working in student services, student affairs, and admissions for about 12 years now, 11 years. So yes, I'm just trying to learn all the things. But yeah, be patient. But I'm getting to answering all your questions as best as I can, and learning as we go, flying the plane as we drive it.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah, definitely. And so a little bit about me too. I've been at the J School for about a year. I started 3 days before I went to shelter in place last year, but my background has been in higher ed at previous institutions, St. Mary's College over the hill before here, and then in Boston and in St. Louis. So yeah, I know this is an important session because it probably is one of the key factors of your decision making. We completely understand that. I was first in my family to go to college and also graduate school, and I remember just financial aid and funding as always was like a priority and something that brought both stress and joy at the same time because of the balance. So yeah, and I know you probably have dozens of emails to student services email and also admissions, but know that we will respond to them. We haven't forgotten. As you can imagine, it's been as soon as we sent out offers and funding information, there has been a slew of questions that we're just trying to keep up. And we're a small school. It's just the three of us basically trying to answer those questions and such. So let me share my screen. And I'm going to leave it in this kind of mode because I can never figure out how to get it where it takes up my whole screen. And then as Blaine mentioned, Michelle and him will answer any chats, and then we'll answer questions at the end. So yes, financial aid and student resources. That is our topic today. So our goal is basically to provide you information so that you can make an informed decision about your graduate education, while also providing you strategies, options, and resources for financing your graduate education. As I mentioned, it's such an important factor, and I know that it's probably in the top of minds for all of you. And also, I just, this is probably one of the sessions where I'm going to be brutally, truthfully honest with you because it has to do with money and such. And so on the flip side, we know that going to school costs a lot of money. And then on the other side of it, we know that going to Berkeley journalism is worth that investment. So I just lost where you all went. Hold on a second. I like to see where your faces are, but I don't know where it went on my screen. So hold on a second. Let me just acclimate myself. There you are. Okay. All right. So yes, that's our goal today. Some strategies that we're going to share is just in terms of understanding your cost and budget, giving you ideas to plan ahead, uh, giving you resources and information to expand and diversify the resources, your funding resources, and provide tips for managing your finances effectively. So right off the bat, here's the reality of the cost of going to graduate school at Berkeley journalism. So you can see here in this table, this is the cost of tuition and fees per semester. So you can find, and we'll share this presentation with all the live links and such so that you don't have to like try to screenshot it or keep it. We'll be sure and send this to you so that you have access to all the information. So you can see that in tuition and fees, there is a resident and a non-resident cost. So resident of California, and then non-resident is anyone outside of California as well as international. So there's a tuition per semester, include student services fees. Um, there's also professional degree supplemental tuition, health insurance. And so per semester for a resident student may cost around $14,000 and for a non-resident around $20,000. So these are all based on this year's. They released the tuition and fees around July 1st to give you an accurate perspective of that. So when you put the tuition and fees together, plus your cost of attendance, so these are things like supplies, your laptop, course materials, room and board, personal costs, transportation, health insurance for the academic year. A California resident may spend about $60,000 and a non-California resident may spend about $72,000. So this is the estimate for the year. I know that's a large amount, and it includes a lot of the comprehensive resources that you receive, both in terms of your education as well as just university resources and school resources. All right, so that was just kind of the understanding your cost and budget. So thinking about planning ahead, and I wanted to give you some context of kind of where things are and how it all fits together. So about 50% of master's students at Berkeley take out student loans. I know graduate education is a lot different than undergraduate education and also a lot different from doctoral education. A majority of master's programs out there aren't necessarily funded 100%. If that, many students will take out loans, many students will do employment. I myself, when I went to get my master's, I got a graduate assistantship, but then I also had loans and also worked. So 30% of admitted students each year receive some sort of departmental funding. So this is funding from the Berkeley journalism. And so as you can imagine, 30% is not that much. If we have a class of 60, gosh, now I have to do the math. If we have a class of 60, that's less than a third of those students, or about a third of those students receive some sort of funding at admittance. This year, just to give you an idea, we tried something new because we know that financial need is important. So we asked students if they choose, they could fill out the optional financial need essay. And so 60% of you filled this out, just to give you an idea. So I know that searching and applying for financial assistance can be time consuming and it's a lengthy process. Some of you may have started even before you were coming to graduate school, some are starting now, but it definitely is a comprehensive process. And so it's important that you explore all options and resources. One kind of subpopulation in terms of our international students, which usually is about 10% of our student population. For you, as part of your international student status, you must show about 60 to 70K in liquid assets. And that's something particular, so we can talk with you about what that means, and also our international office can assist with that. And also just when you're planning ahead, consider any additional costs that are unique to you. Things that you might need in terms of living in the Bay Area, or moving here, or moving from another part of the Bay Area or California to here. So yeah. So more on the planning ahead. So just to give you again kind of a picture of what things look like. So in your first year, as I mentioned, some of you may get departmental aid. Many of you will take out student loans. Some of you will do some sort of university employment or other employment on campus or off campus. Other students may also seek out awards and funding outside of the university or other personal kind of contributions. In your second year, departmental aid consists of employment, travel grants, emergency, student loans, specialty awards, again, student loans. There's also other university employments, other awards and funding, and then also consider your residency status if you're in the United States and not in California. So we'll go into detail about this more as we continue on the slides, but this is just kind of a big picture view of how you fund your first semester or first year and how you fund your second year. So here's the first year. So as I mentioned, you may get departmental aid, which is based on merit and with consideration of financial need. You may use student loans. You may do employment, whether it be in the university outside, and you may also have other resources, external awards and funding. Did you want to talk about loans, Michelle? FAFSA? Volley it over to you.
Okay. Well, FAFSA, you're probably familiar with that already, the free application for federal student aid. That's something you fill out, which is always really good to fill out and beneficial, whether or not you're planning to take out loans now, because you might want to take them out later. And FAFSA is something our department also refers to. Is that correct, Tracy? When we're considering funding. And the second part, do you want me to talk about regular demonstrated need?
Sure.
Okay. So the university determines most students, I'd say, 98% of students are eligible for sorry, I didn't drink enough coffee this morning, regular demonstrated need, which the university determines, and that'll show up we have a thing in UC called Cal Central, which shows your funding packages. So this loan packages covers all the costs of school minus any scholarships that you might receive. So that's something that most all students will receive.
Yep.
So basically, you'll be able to view this on your Cal Central in about May. Anything else, Tracy?
No, that's good. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, so as Michelle mentioned, if you fill out FAFSA and if you qualify for loans, usually the standard budget that's provided is essentially the cost of education, which includes tuition and fees. You don't have to take all that money out, but you'll be eligible for that in terms of federal loans and such. So again, these are estimates just based on this past year.
It also covers cost of living,
Right.
housing, books. Well, we don't have a lot of books that you need to purchase at journalism school, but it covers general standard of living costs.
Yeah. So maybe when you get information about what kind of laptop you might need, it could help you purchase a laptop and such. So some of those extra costs, or not extra costs, but costs that pertain to your supplies for going to school. All right, so working while in school. So the other way that I mentioned in terms of people providing for and paying for graduate education is by doing academic student employments, ASCs. So these are graduate student instructors, readers, tutors. In some cases, they provide $8,500 in fee remission, which covers things like in that first couple slides about fee and tuition, and also some supplemental wages and such. So these lists down here are some of the departments that our students have worked at. The one thing that I've really appreciated, in many universities that I've worked at, is that Berkeley has a lot of student employment. If everybody in this class sought out employment, I'm pretty sure and was qualified, I'm sure everybody would get a position. So many of our students do this. While we don't necessarily recommend working in your first semester because it's pretty heavy lift in terms of your J200 course and just basic transitioning to graduate school, there are students who do it, and it's a reality that is out there that people work, whether it be in these types of positions or outside. Anything else you want to add about that, Michelle, or covered it?
Sorry, I was looking at the chats. Okay. I would
just saying if there's
say,
anything. I had mentioned that we don't often
of course,
recommend working.
of course. Yeah, we do have students who would beg to differ. We just had a funding presentation, and one of our second year students has done ASC for 2 years. So it's just a matter of your individual abilities to do, with time management and what you think you can handle. So we're not saying you can't do this or necessarily that you shouldn't. It's a decision you have to make. And I would also say that the spring is not too early a time to contact other departments on campus, because in your first semester, if this is something you're interested in, you'll have to seek employment outside of journalism school because our internal ASC positions become available in the spring of to apply for in the spring of your first year. So you would contact other departments on campus, and you could check in with their student advisor or whomever is in charge of the hiring process, because it's all based on their enrollment capacity and their needs. And you could contact departments where you have a background in that subject matter, or if you don't. Because honestly, most departments across campus really like journalism students, and they like hiring you because you're really good communicators, and we have a good track record. Tracy and I also post any positions that come our way on our Slack channel, so you can check that out to apply to see what's available to apply for.
Yeah, and I see Ruth's question about seeing a fee remission of 9,900. So each of the positions vary. They depends on the percentage that it is. So some are 25%, which means that you're working less quarter time versus full time. Some are 50%. So it really just depends on each individual one. They offer a variety of things in terms of fee remission and wages. And that link down here at the bottom, you can kind of see an overview of some of these things. Also in that guide for financing your education that we sent out a couple weeks ago, which I know will take about 10 times to read it, but there's links and everything that we've talked about in here will be in there as well. But definitely a very dense and comprehensive information in that guide. So yeah, all right. So other awards and funding. So some of you may have indicated on your admissions application that you wanted to be considered for a foreign language and area studies fellowship. So if you did and you submitted an essay, we nominated you for that. And so hopefully, I forget when we hear about those, usually a little bit later. Some of you also may qualify for MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program. So again, if you did qualify for that, we nominated you. And then there's other fellowships and such on campus, like the Human Rights Center Fellowship. Depending upon how you might identify. There's resources for parents and caregivers, as well as veterans. And many of our students also receive awards from outside organizations. So all these letters down here, NABJ, NAHJ, AAJA, IRE, are all journalism organizations, but there's also a list of outside funding and such that we'll talk about here, but also in a little bit. So again, it's important to kind of consider all options and try for everything. We have students who maybe when they come to one of our socials, we can explain, they can share how they successfully fulfilled paying for their education. So then in your second year, similar to your first, with an addition of now you would qualify for department employment, so employment within the school, as well as travel grants, specialty awards, and other things. And also we'll talk about residency status for those of you that might qualify for that. So yeah, did you want to talk about this, Michelle, or I can talk about it, up to you? Some of the employment opportunities in the school.
Oh, yeah, sure. So we have opportunities such as you can work for our website. Sometimes I've noticed even with our students who are currently here, they're not aware that all these opportunities are available. So Marlena Telvik, who handles our website, she's always looking for students to write content. And we have a photo pool. So if you have photography abilities, that's a really good way to pick up some work. And did you mention BAMI yet?
No.
Okay, so that's our abbreviation for the Berkeley Advanced Media Institute. So that's part of the journalism school, but they generate really wonderful workshops for people outside the J School. Sorry, we're moving away from calling it J School, but it's a habit that I find it hard to drop. More professionally, it's a journalism school, but I'll just say J School all the time. Anyhow, so they hire students to help work in these workshops, so that's a really good opportunity. The IRP, the Investigative Reporting Program, I think they hired about 15 or so research assistants this year. And let's see what else. Oh, and we also have something called JPeer, where we hire about 5 to 6 students to work on different topics like fellowships and a thing called the Student Digest, and that comes with a stipend. So that's not an ASC position. It's about a $4,000 yearly stipend. And it's an opportunity to be a leader in the school and a mentor. And I think I covered it all.
Yes.
Oh, we also have an undergraduate summer minor program, and we hire several students to be readers and tutors for that program. So if this year it's going to be online, but if next year, if you're in the Bay Area for the summer, that's something you can apply for.
So related to this, Ruth had a question about just, is this suggested for second year or restricted to second year? So the course tutors, which are, and the summer minor, those are for second year because they're tutoring classes that you're in. So you can't be a tutor for a class that you're in. And then tech tutors also for second years. Investigative Reporting Program and Berkeley Advanced Media Institute. They may recruit in the fall once you're in and at the school, so you can keep a lookout for that, where you can work during the fall or in the spring at the very latest, and then obviously in your second year. Freelancing and web content, I mean, and photo pool, that's basically just based on in terms of need. So they'll put a call out for that one again when you start in the fall, and the JPeers are for second years. So there's a question about tech tutors. So tech tutors, how many do we hire? About 5 of those each year, again, for second years. They help some of our staff manage our equipment and distribution. They also do kind of tutorials on the technology and equipment that we have at the school. So yeah, just to repeat, so Berkeley Advanced Media Institute and Investigative Reporting Program, those are things that could be available to you as first year students. Usually they'll probably put a call out for that in September or later. All right. What else we got? So here are things also in your second year that you might qualify for. And also parts of your second semester of your first year. So we support students with travel grants and conference grants. So for example, if you're attending National Association of Black Journalists Conference, which happens usually every August, we try to support students attend a conference once a year. You know, if they're choosing, they apply. Travel grants, we offer those in the fall and the spring. The fall, when you first start, is usually prioritized for second year, so you can apply in your second semester of your first year. So travel grants support, for example, your master's project completion. We also have an Earth journalism course that does some travel. So these are some of the ways that we support you after your first semester. We also have close partnerships with the White House Correspondents Association and the Pulitzer Center, which each year one student is selected for this. And these are usually timed in the spring. Is that right? Or maybe late fall to early spring in terms of application process and eligibility. Some of the platforms have fellowships related. So Jim Marshall is related for photojournalism. Marlon Riggs is documentary. And so these again are things that are open for second year students. And then each semester, each semester we also have an emergency grant, a Clementine Douglas Emergency Grant Fund for, you know, if something comes up, like I'm trying to think of examples. Car got broken into and your equipment got stolen, or you had a medical procedure that you didn't anticipate. So we tried to give, you know, about $500, up to $500 each semester to students who would qualify and where something comes up. Anything else you wanted to add to that, Michelle? Or that I missed? Or those are just pictures of people at the previous White House Correspondents' dinner.
Stop me if you said this already. Did you mention the criterion for travel grants and the amounts?
No.
Okay.
That's good. Go ahead and expand.
So basically, we have this travel grant opportunity twice a year in the fall. Second years apply, and in the spring, it's open to first and second years. And generally, students can receive at least one travel grant in their 2 years here. A lot of students reserve that opportunity for when they're working on their master's projects. It's a really good source for getting funding. It's about 950, up to 950 for domestic grants and 2,000 for international travel. What else about that? Yeah, so it's something you can use to, as I mentioned, to assist in your master's projects, or if it's for a specific course, or it could be just a story that you're working on.
Great. So other ways in your second year, again, student loans, working. So again, you may work at that time in your second year within the school or in other departments on campus. I didn't mention this earlier, but again, if you fill out the FAFSA and you qualify there, you may get work study employment, which I know a lot of university departments appreciate that because basically it helps pay part of your salary. So it makes for an appealing hire for folks across campus. and such. So make sure you fill out FAFSA. Some students also freelance throughout the year for different, they kind of find these on their own, but also through postings that we have at the school that come our way. Other things in your second year, again, these considerations, these fellowships and such will come available and you'll see them. They're kind of on a similar cycle every year. Grad and establishing residency. Would you like to talk about this, Michelle? Oop, you're on mute. You're still on mute, Michelle.
Okay.
I'm sure you said a lot of cool things, and now we.
I'm done. I said it all. For students who are out of state, this only applies to U.S. citizens. In your second year, well, in the spring of your first year, you can begin the process to establish residency, and the residency office is aware of who are non-residents, and they'll reach out to you, and I'll remind you. But basically, you want to document your presence in the state as soon as you arrive. You want to collect documents to establish your physical presence. So basically, you have to be physically present in California for about 366 days prior to the residence determination date. And all this information, we're kind of at the journalism school, the messengers. The definitive information is on the residency website, so I would check that out. But few examples of things you want to start collecting is if you came here by plane, you want to keep your plane ticket. If you drove, you want to keep receipts for that. You want to register your vehicle. I think it's within 20 days of arriving in the state. You want to register to vote. If you drive, get a driver's license. So I know I'm throwing out a lot of tidbits at you. So if you are a non-resident, I strongly urge going on the site and checking out their specifications, because they're really super sticklers in you getting it right, and they're very firm about the qualifications. And I believe it's around March they'll start asking you for these documents.
Yep, March of next year.
Correct. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So yeah, it's important that if you're able to establish residency, that you do this and get ahead of it and figure out the to-dos list and such that Michelle mentioned, because that will save you around $13,000 per year, which is a lot. And I know some students, depending upon if they happen to be in California recently, but not quite the 366 days, but close, they may also qualify in the spring. But again, you'd have to look at that right now. But most people don't qualify till next academic year. All right. So managing finances. So there's different, which again, this is in that comprehensive guide that was sent to you all on email. There's different tools and resources available to you, outside funding. Also, Graduate Division has some fellowships and grants listed there. UCLA has a nice list of funding and resources. I also put, again, you'll see it later, but I also put here in the link, ASU has a good list of journalism scholarships too. So yeah, there's a lot to do. It's like a full-time job searching for funding and such.
Tracy?
And then I would also use your resources. Yep.
Oh, I
Go ahead.
keep on seeing a really good question from Ruth, but I don't have the exact answer. She's referencing taxes in California and how much of the funding packages and/or ASC income is taxable. Do you have the answer to that?
Yeah, so your tuition and fee, I can share a link. And actually, I remember you had that question on email and I had the draft ready to send to you, but let me find the links when we're answering questions and put that in there. So anything that you receive in terms of employment, obviously, or that you do for employment is taxable. And then also there might be certain, in terms of tax partnerships or things that we have. International students may also have a different level of taxes depending upon which country they reside. So I'll put that link in there because I can't quite exactly give you the details of that just off the top of my head. But I did also see a question in there about freelancing. Is it a viable option for international students? So international students in your first year are not allowed to work off campus. So there are ways that, that you might be working for the school, or that you can work in other ways within the school to provide that additional income. And also, so there was a question also about FAFSA. So FAFSA is for domestic students. And then I saw a question about travel grants. So travel grants, you're eligible to apply each semester, but there are definitely considerations if you've been awarded before. So for example, you're in your second year and you got awarded in the fall and you're applying again in the spring. If somebody else is applying in the spring but never got awarded, they might get priority over you, but you're welcome to apply each semester.
Tracy?
Yeah? Shall I go to questions since we're already there? These are just other resources before I finish.
Well, I just, go ahead.
Housing. Yeah, go ahead.
I just said two other things. And forgive me if you've said this, but I keep on glancing at the chat. So I lose my attention. But we also have classes within the journalism school. Like we pretty much every spring have an earth journalism class. And that's an application-based class. But if you get in that, they review your story proposal, and that's also a travel class. So that's separate from the travel grant awards. So we have opportunities like earth journalism, and every now and then we have another type of travel class offered. We've had an India class, we had a Israel West Palestine class. So there are many opportunities for travel grants besides just the general travel grant application. I also wanted to say something about you might want to start a fellowship and grant spreadsheet right now. And if this is actually the perfect time to do it, because whether or not you choose to come to Berkeley or you choose to come to another school, this is like portable funding. So you could maybe research, challenge yourself to research about 5 outside travel grant opportunities where you could get funding. That's it.
Thanks. Good tips. I'm looking through the questions in the chat. I just posted in there the link for the tax information. Hopefully it can be explained. Otherwise, you can also make an appointment with our financial aid office and such to go into details about that taxing things. But I think it explains it. So one is about getting tax benefits because you're paying education, and then one is about being taxed on different qualifying income. Let's see. So I know we have about 15 minutes left and there might be other questions. I just saw something. Where did it go? Why do applications for need-based funding open in September when offer acceptance dates are already passed? So any kind of need-based or external or internal funding is year-round. I mean, the timing of it, while ideally you would know about it before you start, sometimes they just happen all year round. I think if that answers your question, Farhan.
That question was specific to like international students. The process is slightly different, but I would say I would defer that to an international student advisor over at the bio office who would have more understanding about it because it's posted on their website.
Yeah. Let me share back my screen because I saw a question out there about housing. So housing is one way, obviously, that you can kind of manage your costs of living and cost of attendance. Oh my gosh, why can't this go bigger? So we mentioned in the last session when we had the first one with students, there's different options, and here are some of those links. And again, I'll make sure to send this, and I believe it's at the bottom of that comprehensive guide as well. But most students start looking for housing probably in April or so, April till June, just looking at housing options, just exploring what's out there. And so you definitely want to try to secure your housing or have a place by July 1 or August 1. But these are some of those resources. Does that answer? Oh, and Michelle put some of those links in there. All right. Other tips in terms of housing? I mean, there's different options here. Some people live on campus, some people live off campus. There's as you can imagine, living in a basically university area. Some other residents also support housing of a room or of a in-law suite, as they call it. So there's definitely different options for that.
And I would join our journalism Facebook pages and reach out to other classmates you may want to conspire to live together, or there might be current students who have a fellow housemate leaving and they have an availability. So I just do a lot of networking in that area.
There was a question, and I'm not sure if I got this question right, but so if you decide, you know what, I'm going to take a year off and do some other things and defer my admittance, you would then be considered for funding with the next year's class, if that answers the question. So it's possible to defer. The deadline for that, again, Blaine, remind me, deferral, is that June 1st?
June 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would just email us. Yep.
Well, by May 1st, they would need to go ahead and SIR or accept their offer. And then June 1st is the deadline for deferrals.
Yeah. Did we mention that, by the way? We should clarify that date, the April 15 and May 1st. Did we say that at the beginning?
This question came up and I sent out communication. So there was confusion about April 15th versus May 1st. April 15th is a standard deadline that was basically a consortium of all the schools across the United States. April 15th, so like accept your offer, and that's just for like competitive reasons or whatever the case may be. We're accepting, so the graduate division is going by that, but they're accepting students to accept their offers past that deadline. And so we've chosen May 1st. So that's our departmental deadline. So that's the final deadline in order to go ahead and SIR.
Yep. There was a question about GSI reader positions. Will I get a result before May 1st if you apply? I would imagine, again, it depends by department. For example, ours, whenever we select, we actually don't notify probably until late April, early May. So yeah, that seems about right in terms of, and then your question about maybe demonstrating the visa in exchange of liquid assets. I'd have to look into that or check with our international office for that specific answer. I'm not sure. So another question, I will have health insurance for the first year of my graduate studies. Will I be able to get the $2,800 as part of my tuition waived? The short answer is yes. And there's a process for that. Do students who decide to apply for residency their second year usually get it? I will answer that yes, and it's also a very comprehensive process. So there's like 3 key steps that, let me go find that website in terms of, you can see that thing. Did you want to add something, Michelle?
I was just going to say, if you follow all the guidelines and are really attentive to what they're asking you, yes, you will usually get it. I would just be really careful with that. We had one student this year who missed one thing, so she had to wait a whole semester to get it. So it's really on you to pay attention to that, and they're very responsive, the residency office. If you have questions, you can reach out to them. They'll pretty much answer you right away. And if they don't, reach out to me and I can reach out for you. But they're very responsive.
Let me just show you a quick of the three kind of criteria. So eligible immigration status, you have to establish physical presence, which is the item that Michelle mentioned earlier about being here 366 days and doing different things like plane tickets, flight confirmations, license, all those things. And then your intent to remain, oh, this is where the license come, but taxes and such. So these are all on that website and in that guide, as well as when we share this presentation. Hold on a second. Now I lost a little button that says stop. There it is. Stop sharing. No matter how many times I do Zoom, I still have to get used to it. So where should we, could you, okay. I see, is that Cesar, you have a question? And you also had a question in the chat. Your hand raised?
Yeah, hi, thank you.
Hi.
At the beginning, you said something about for international students having around 60,000 to 70,000 available for admission. Could you please clarify on that?
Sure.
Thanks.
Let me just pull up that information. New students. So it's all part of your kind of process in terms of an international student. You have to submit documentation to our international office, and here is their link to that. In terms of specificities, I was trying to think of the word. Usually, again, it's here, let me show you. Actually, I'm just going to put it in the link, but there's proof of funding. So of funding resources, basically personal funds, private sponsors, including parents, UC Berkeley awards, those things. Did that help a little bit? You may just have to read through kind of the specifics of what is needed. And again, BIO, which is our international office, can help walk you through this.
Sure, thanks.
Yep.
I believe you also asked about getting an appointment with one of the bio advisors. There's an appointment process and the hours listed, and I just put that in chat.
Yes. So there was a question, where would I see any financial packages offered? So in terms of departmental funding, the emails went out 1 week and a half or 2 weeks ago for anything that has to apply for things like student loans and other resources. That will be, as I think Blaine mentioned, later in April and May on your Cal Central, once you get access to that and after you SIR and such, right? Yep.
That is correct. So once they commit, then we're able to communicate that information and have it dropped into your where you're able to access your monies. You'll be able to set up your Cal Central, your Berkeley email, and then once you're into Cal Central, which is your central hub of all your monies, your academics, your information, you'll be able to set up your direct deposit so you can get those funds, or it gets allocated appropriately.
This is a good question. So all university reserve GSI slots for their students in their own departments. What percentage of J school students obtain GSI positions? I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but as I mentioned, there's so many academic student employments across campus that if every single one of you applied, you would probably get something. It's just whether you want to. So in terms of journalism school tutor slots, those are limited. I think what do we have? Maybe 10 course tutors in their second year, and then about 10 for the summer minor. So if you're a class of 60, obviously not everybody does that, but then some people do things outside the school. Like for example, media, a lot of students, J school students work in Human Rights Center. They work all over the place.
I see Alma asked me, she said her internet kicked her off. Could I repeat my answer? Can't remember what the question was. Oh, I think it was like, where would they get their access to their funds? Was that the question?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So you'll be able, once you SIR by May 1st, which is the deadline, and I'll send out another communication as a reminder, but once you SIR, you'll be able to set up, you'll get communication about setting up your Cal Central and getting your Berkeley email, access to all the things. Once you're in Cal Central, which is the central hub for all students to get their academics, their financial aid, things, and what have you, you'll set up your direct deposit and to your like bank account or wherever you want it to route, and that's where you'll be able to get access to your funds. But we'll be able to communicate that information to them once you're committed as a student. But
Yeah. There was a question about if you deferred from last year, do I need to officially mail the admissions department? As long as you've been in communication with us, we've already notified them and you're considered part of this class of 23. Other questions? Thanks for answering the question, Michelle, about internships. Yep, there's a whole kind of, you're supported in that process of finding your internship for your summer after your second year. That could start, your search could start as soon as a lot of the, which we do have a session coming in April, but some of those larger organizations, competitive ones, put out calls in October and November of your first semester. And then they go all the way, many other internship sites go all the way, have considerations all the way into your spring, April, January, February, March, April. So people, for example, our first year class right now, it's March, probably half of them have already secured an internship for the summer, and definitely many of them are, the ones that haven't are in progress of interviewing and searching and such, but everyone gets one. Is there a sample?
I was wondering, did we answer Andrew's question?
Where was that one?
Andrew, maybe you could say yes or no, or indicate that in the chat. I'm not sure if I entirely understood it, but I think we answered it.
Okay, well, I'll read it out loud and then answer two in the last 2 minutes. So I was offered financial package from the department before my FAFSA was fully processed. Would I need to take action to better reflect aid now that my FAFSA is now processed? So if your FAFSA is fully processed now, then you may be considered for other aid, whether it be loans or other things within the university, but it won't affect your department aid, meaning it won't decrease or increase it necessarily. What do you have? Is there a sample list of internships? We shall get that to you, definitely by the career session. Other questions? We have like 1 minute. I'm trying to think of things that people ask and that I've had. Know that, again, we know that funding your education is really important and such a key part of your decision. And it varies for each individual. I know that there are current students who vowed to never get any student loans, and they accomplished it by putting together, 10 or different kinds of things. I think of one student in particular. She found housing in another, in helping an elderly person. They applied for all sorts of academic student employment on campus. They do freelancing, applied for scholarships. And so they were able to accomplish that. Other students, and I know in terms of my own experience too, it's, I just kind of accepted the fact that part of my funding would be supported by student loans. And so various people do that as well, and they are okay with that, and others are not. So there's a full spectrum of kind of considerations for funding education, and it's really up to you personally what you decide and what you are comfortable with doing. So yeah, I don't know, any last words, Michelle or Blaine?
I just thought of one of our second year students who said she received a lot of outside funding that nobody else thought to apply for. She she pretty much funded her whole education, and a lot of it was finding these opportunities that are there, and people don't have the time or don't think they can get it. And um, I know it takes a lot of time, but once you've filled out a couple of them, you kind of can use the same material to apply for the ensuing applications. And some of it can also come from your admissions application, the information you gave us. So if that makes it sound a little more palatable, I just highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's a great tip, Michelle. And once you get started on one, then you kind of build that momentum and such. So yeah, the recording will be available on that new Admit website, I believe, right, Blaine? So we'll.
That is correct. Right now, the recording from the last presentation that is now up along with the slides, and we'll do the same with this one. It took a while for our IT person to be able to manage it, me work with them, but it should be a lot easier now. So we should have that up a little bit quicker.
So thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate your time, and thanks again for your patience as we respond to your email. I know there's a bunch out there that we have to respond to. We haven't forgotten about you. We will respond and get back to you. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free again to email the journalism admissions email. I prefer those kind of centralized things because otherwise you'll get mixed in with the rest of my email. I'm just giving you a tip from my perspective. All right, so great. We'll be in touch with you and see you. When is our next event? Now I don't even know what it is.
It's the 29th. It'll be the International Student Info Session. So you'll be able to meet with some panelists, some JPers that are international students and our current students, and we'll be able to answer a lot of questions, probably give you those nice, cool tidbits. They'll probably talk about internships and whatever the case may be in their own personal experience. But yeah, that's something to look forward to. That's on the 29th, and you can find that on the new admin website, which is journalism.berkeley.edu /new-admins, and password is GoBears2023, which is you all. All right, well, thank you all for coming. And yeah, if you have any questions, you're welcome to email myself, Tracy, or Michelle. Yes, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop.